Poverty in any society is the loss of the ability to afford basic necessities. Often this would mean having an income that is less than the average household in a country. The poor are exposed to greater personal and environmental health risks, are less well nourished, have less information and are less able to access health care. They thus have a higher risk of illness and disability. Poverty is the cause of several factors. 1. Unemployment or having a poor quality, low-paid job, as this limits access to a decent income and cuts people off from social networks. 2. Low levels of education and skills, because this limits people's ability to access decent jobs to develop themselves and participate fully in society. 3. The size and type of family. If one comes from a large families and lone parent families tend to be at greater risk of poverty because they have higher costs, lower incomes and more difficulty in gaining well-paid employment. 4. Gender. Women are generally at higher risk of poverty than men, as they are less likely to be in paid employment, tend to have lower pensions, are more involved in unpaid caring responsibilities, and when they are in work, are frequently paid less. 5. Disability or ill health, because this limits ability to access employment and also leads to increased day-to-day costs. 6. Being a member of minority ethnic groups and immigrants/undocumented migrants, as they suffer particularly from discrimination and racism and thus have less chance to access employment, often are forced to live in worse physical environments and have poorer access to essential services. Living in a remote or very disadvantaged community where access to services is worse. Consequences of poverty. Poverty has far-reaching consequences on the society. People suffering from poverty will generally have a low standard of living. They are not able to afford education and lack access to health care and education. This will lead to a low quality of human capital and thus compromise economic growth. Poverty takes a toll on poor children's development. For example, poverty causes malnutrition, which would affect the development of a child's mental thinking and healthy body. Poverty may also lead to political instability and lead to increased risk of war, mass emigration of population and terrorism. Absolute or extreme poverty is when people lack the basic necessities for survival. For instance, they may be starving, lack clean water, proper housing, sufficient clothing or medicines, and be struggling to stay alive. This type of poverty is most common in developing countries. Relative poverty. As per European Commission, people are said to be living in relative poverty if their income and resources are so inadequate as to preclude them from having a standard of living considered acceptable in the society in which they live. The general causes of poverty are: 1. Scarcity of resources. 2. Unequal distribution of resources, incomes and opportunities. 3. Food shortages and malnutrition. 4. Rise in cost of living, food. 5. Drought and water crisis. 6. Low level of education. The inability to break out of low income is called the poverty cycle. This happens when low income leads to low savings. With low savings, the low income cannot invest in upgrade of their skills through education. This leads to low productivity and ultimately low pay. The cycle then repeats itself. The poverty line. 1. The poverty line is the minimum level of income deemed adequate in a particular country. 2. The common international poverty line is $1.25 a day. To reduce poverty, the government may undertake the following. 1. Growth of income through education. 2. Improvement on quality of life and social well-being. 3. Good governance, monetary and fiscal policies to promote economic growth. 4. No corruption and transparency of the rule of law and business regulations. 5. Planning and monitoring economy for long-term sustainable growth.